in the corporate lobby. It may or may not look like this any longer. They updated it in 2019, so, but the information's still there. You'll have a decisions and reports area. That's usually at the beginning. I think it's at the very top of yours now.
Yeah.
It just says go to decisions. But then you'll have some other items that are like messages and deadlines. It will post on there what's coming up in the decision schedule. So yours probably now says practice year 11, 11:59 p.m. tomorrow night.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pay attention to that, because once you practice year 11 goes, the next thing will pop up. Sometimes there might be two things that pop up on the corporate lobby. Some people tend to just jump to decisions and reports, and they miss some of those messages. That's especially true with the 3-year plan. Okay, let's see what she said. Oh, that's nice. Is she sucking up?
Yes.
Tell her I said I'm secure the Oh, I love
I think
it.
so.
Okay, that was great.
All right.
Worth it.
It was worth it.
Was Dixon shoe wear, I would leave the D off of my name and just write Ixon shoe wear, because the D automatically puts in there. So
It does.
if you,
On the scorecard, it doesn't do that.
maybe they fixed that piece a little bit, but what happens is that you have, like, if I had a D,
It'd be
it would
Dixon.
automatically, yeah, D Dixon is what it would do.
Oh, well.
They may have improved that. They're always improving this. The first time I taught this simulation, it was a 3.5-inch floppy disk that each of you had. You had 16 choices to make. You'd put them on the floppy disk, you'd hand me the floppy disk, I'd put it in my computer, I would run it, I would copy all the reports back to you on the floppy disk, hand it back to you, and you had basically a spreadsheet. That's what this really is. In the background of the simulation is a very elaborate spreadsheet. And on the spreadsheet, it is taking the information from all of your inputs and then crunching all of those numbers and then coming out with the outputs. It is definitely evolved over time to now it's an online platform, and it's no longer, I'm sure it's no longer an Excel spreadsheet that they use, but that is where its origins came from. And that is where your numbers come from, as they go into there, and then it trends all of those and tries to see what the reactions would be. Now there's dozens of decisions that you make on multiple topics. And I want to refer to the way you make decisions too. What do you do when you get a brand new car? First thing when you hop in a new car, you drive it, but what else do you do? You name it. Okay, good. What else?
Get insurance.
Insurance.
What's your
Insurance, okay, let's think just the car. The excitement of the car.
Play with it. Play around with the radio.
Play with the radio,
Get an air freshener.
get an air freshener, right?
Push all the buttons.
Push all the buttons. And that's what I was looking for, you push the buttons. And that's what students tend to want to do with this. Is when they get into it, they want to push all the buttons. They want to go through and see, all right, I'll change this number, I'll change that number. And they start to play trial and error. That's not how a business runs. Businesses don't typically, at least not successful businesses, don't usually run on trial and error. What they usually run on is thoughtful strategic analysis and consideration of what we want to do. The problem here is that all we're going to see is numbers. So when we open up the simulation, we're going to see a spreadsheet of places to enter numbers. And it's going to give us feedback when we enter some of those numbers, and we're going to want to say, oh, hey, let's try this number, let's try that number, and then we start to get lost, or we start to get too bogged down by the numerical piece of this. It's a decision-making program, not trying to do math calculations. And sometimes students may have a difficult time making that connection. So sometimes I tell people to step back out of the numbers and let's imagine this was a real, actual, living, thriving athletic footwear company. which is why I open up the presentation without getting into the simulation yet. You know the schedule. The help videos are super helpful as far as so we are in the footwear industry. Athletic footwear is what we create. There's no stilettos, okay, no boots, it's all athletic footwear, sneakers. That's what we produce. We are a global manufacturer, distributor, and wholesaler of these shoes. To give it some history, we are in our 10th year. Although the simulation doesn't actually say it this way, I think that this makes sense, so I usually set the stage. Think of us that we were one big company, and after 10 years, they said we were too big, and they split us. And in this case, they split us into 8 equal parts. Here's why that matters. We have a shared history. We have a shared history of 10 years, where all of our data is exactly the same. And here in year 10, we've now become 8 entities, equally dividing everything that we have. We all have a shared history. The reason we have to have this 10 years, the reason we're starting in year 11 is because, like I said, this is an Excel spreadsheet originally, and it has to have all of that historical data in order to make predictions as to what happens with the data that you're creating now. So that's why we start in year 11. And it also gives us an opportunity to take a look at historical stuff. Also, we don't have to worry about things like startup costs and the establishing our business. We have an established established clientele. We also are in a good position. We are financially sound. We're a good company. That's where we all start, at the same playing field. To you what we're doing. We're going to start at the very beginning. We make shoes. That's what we do. So we have a plant. And in that plant, we are going to have to make decisions about how the plant runs. From equipment to compensation to how many different models we're going to create of our shoe. We're going to make a lot of decisions based on what happens inside of that plant, the actual creation of our product. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to initially make what we call branded shoes. I want you to think of this like Nike shoes, Reebok shoes, whatever type of athletic footwear you like. They have a brand on it. That's their label that they put on the shoe. Same for you. You all have created a name for yourself. That's your brand. So somewhere you're going to put your logo on that shoe, and it's going to say whatever your, maybe Dixon Footwear, and that's going to be your brand. So those branded shoes that you made with your name on it are going to, you're responsible for everything of those branded shoes. What you're going to do initially is you're going to distribute them to a warehouse. You distribute them to your warehouse, so you have to make them. Now that you made them, they got on a truck or a train or a boat, and they made it to a warehouse. In the warehouse, you now have warehouse operations to consider. How many shoes do I want in this warehouse? And it's not an unlimited size, so I don't want a lot of inventory hanging in there, but I also need to have enough inventory so that I don't have shelves going empty at my retailers. So we have the shoes sitting in the warehouse. So we have to take them from the plant, get them to the warehouse. The warehouse, then we sell those to our retailers. We don't have actual retailers that sell our shoes. So there's no Nike store, okay? So you don't have no Dixon Footwear athletic store. You sell to shoe companies, shoe stores, athletic footwear stores that are willing to sell your brand. Your competitor's brand might be sitting on the shelf right next to it. And you have to sell at a wholesale price to them. You give them a discount, right? Because they are buying in bulk, in large numbers, and you're going to give them what is a wholesale price to there. So what they charge the consumer would be more than what you obviously are charging them. And then they sell, and they're responsible for marketing it to the consumer. You would help them to market to the consumer though. So you become partners in that marketing effort. So you'll do some national type marketing, some of the bigger stuff, and they'll do the point of sale marketing mostly. You also realize that there's some customers that would like to just simply not have to go to the store. They might want to buy your shoes online. And since they want to buy your shoes online, you therefore also market directly to the consumer via the internet. You're not built as a retailer. You're built as a manufacturer. You make the shoes. But you do a little bit of retailing through your internet site. But the bulk of the retailing is happening here with the stores because people like to go try on the shoes. They like to see them, hold them. And that's very difficult to do over the internet, but you still sell some over here, percentage. Well, you're selling straight to the customer, so you're obviously not selling at the same price you sold to the retailer, and you're going to have probably a higher price. That would be the retail price that you're charging to the consumer in that case. There's a third thing that you might do with your shoes. There's going to be some retailers that are very large. I would use Walmart as an example. Walmart wants to sell some pretty inexpensive shoes, but not always inexpensive. But they want the Walmart label on it. So they don't want your label. They don't want it to say Dixon Footwear. They want it to say Great Value, which is Walmart's brand. So they want it to say Great Value on the side of the shoe. They don't care which one of your companies makes them, as long as you satisfy their requirements for the shoe, from the workmanship, the craftsmanship of the shoe, as well as its price. So they're going to give you parameters, and you're going to competitively bid amongst each other to try to win their business so that you can manufacture some shoes. The good news when you do that, you do not have to worry about the marketing. You don't have to worry about all of the distribution and the extra pieces that go into it. You just make the shoe, send it off to Walmart, they take care of the rest. There's going to be multiple of these big name retailers that want to have your shoes. So we call that private label. You'll slap their name on it and you'll sell it to them through a bidding process. It is possible for everyone to win a bid, but that's not typical. Usually what happens is that some companies win the bids, some companies don't win the bids. And the large retailers put their own name on it, they do their own marketing, you need to worry about that. That's the stage. That's how the process is working. Where are we doing all of this? So that everywhere. This is a global footwear company. We have 4 major marketplaces for which we compete. Right now we have a presence in all 4. We compete in North America, we compete in Latin America, we also compete in Europe, Africa, and we compete in Asia Pacific. So those are 4 distinct geographic marketplaces for which we compete. The beauty of the program, I can choose anything I want to do. So if I went backwards and I looked at this, I could say, you know what? I'm not going to do any internet. I don't need to do internet. I won't do anything there. Or I'm going to double down on internet. Or I'm going to charge this price on the internet. Or you know what? The wholesalers, I'm not going to worry about them. I'm going to focus on the private labels. Or nah, I don't want to do private labels. I want to focus on my retailers. You get to make those choices. All of these are flexible, and you get to make the decisions on them, as are the markets in which you compete. You might say, you know what? I want nothing to do with Europe. I don't want to sell any shoes there. It's too expensive for me to sell and ship the shoes there. I'm going to focus on just North America and Latin America. I don't want to deal with the rest of the world. Okay. I want to have one strategy in Asia and a different strategy in Latin America. You can do that. I want to have the same strategy in all four. I want to make it nice and easy, kind of follow the same train of thought, so I don't have to rethink everything. And you can do that too. I want to sell to only wholesalers in Asia, but I want to sell only on internet in Europe. Okay. Those are all decisions you'll be able to make, and I'll show you where you can make those. Here are the four places. This is where we start the game. We have the four distinct corners of the world. So we have North America, Latin America, Europe, Africa, and then Asia Pacific. And this is how we start the simulation. This is where the starting point is, but you can make any, like I just said, any changes you want. In North America, we have a plant. What do you notice about the other locations? Okay. In Asia, the plant is double the size of the one in North America. There are no plants in Latin America or Europe. However, all of that could change. I could say, you know what? It makes sense for me to build a plant in Latin America. Okay, I'll build a plant in Latin America. It makes sense for me to reduce the size of my North American plant by half. It makes sense for me to add a third plant in Asia Pacific. Whatever you want to do. You can do all those things. But we start with one plant in North America. I think it makes 1.4 million shoes. And the one in Asia Pacific, 2.8 million shoes. When we get in the simulation, I'll verify those numbers, but I'll also show you that where the numbers meet, because they're almost always in the thousands, so you have to add 3 zeros to almost the number, end of every number you see in the simulation. In North America, right now, we produce in North America. We sell through wholesalers, we sell online, we do private label bidding. Of course, I said we go through the wholesalers and we support retailers there. Latin America, we do almost all of that, except we just simply don't produce the shoes. So where do the shoes come from? Okay, they come from one of the other plants. Maybe some of them come from North America, some of them come from Asia Pacific. Maybe all of them come from Asia Pacific. What happens when you go between regions of the world as far as money is concerned?
Tariffs, exchange rates.
Tariffs, exchange rates, different tax systems. So we have to account for all of that. We want to predict, all right, what is the exchange rate? Maybe there's a better exchange rate from Asia to Latin America than there is from North America to Latin America. Maybe there's not. So we have to be able to use that information as we're making those decisions. And you see Europe and Latin America are very much alike. North America and Asia are very much alike, except Asia's plant is twice the size of the one in North America. Any predictions on labor? What labor costs might be?
Cheaper in Asia.
Probably cheaper in Asia and probably more expensive in Latin or North America. There'll be those types of realistic scenarios are going to be thrown at you. And so this is kind of laying the land a little bit more. Program itself, you'll have different decision screens. In a few minutes, we'll go through every screen individually. And I'll have you pull up that screen, I'll pull up on the board, and we'll go through and see what they all mean. To get there, you'll have a decisions reports menu. This menu is a little bit out of date from yours because yours will probably be a little different order. You have compensation and training first, and that's not on this one, but mostly they're the same. What I want to really show out is the help. in help, you'll have a help document and you have video tutorials. Every single help screen. So if you're on the sales forecast screen, actually it's not there anymore. If you're on branded production screen, and you're on that branded production screen, and you're curious what is going on the screen, I forgot. You go to the help document, it will take you right to that part of the help document that's meant for that decision screen. If you want a video tutorial, you want someone that will have the screen up on your screen, and they will point out where all the different parts are, what all the different pieces mean. You have a video tutorial that'll walk you through it as well. I have found that this is super helpful when you get stuck. There's a manual that comes with this. Don't print it out. You'll waste a ton of paper because it's all right here as the help document, and it'll take you to the part you need. It is not meant as a book to read. It's meant more like a car manual, as one to refer to when you need it. And that's why I point this part out at the decisions. As such, it's changed a little bit. I will start with the decisions that we're going to make. One of the decisions we make is compensation and training. This will be one of the first pieces, is how much am I going to pay my workers? Both my line level staff, the production staff, as well as the supervisory staff. From incentive pay to their base pay, how much do I bump their base pay each year? What type of bonus system do I have for my supervisory staff? What type of training do I provide to both my supervisory staff and my production staff, especially in best practices? Best practices are cumulative, so each year you should get a little better. That's what the compensation and training decision screen is all about. I want to know how much I'm paying my workers. From there, what branded discussion is, or branded production is going to do, what's the quality of our shoes going to be? How many superior materials are we going to put into those shoes? What are we going to, how many different product lines? How many models? Remember, sizes of a shoe is a model. Because you have to have a different production setup for size 5 than you do for size 6. So you have to set your production line up differently, so that is now considered a different model.
Half sizes as well, I imagine.
Half sizes as well. So you want to consider that when you're building your things. Then there's enhanced styling, like colors and little extra features that might be on there. Those are generally easier in the setup. But for the production lines, you could have errors as a result of that. So your quality control, the more changes you have to make in production setup, the more errors you might make and more rejects, and that costs money. Those are decisions you make here. The production order, how many are you going to make in order to meet your demand? You don't want to make too many, because that becomes tied up money. You've taken that money and you've made something, and you want to be able to sell that something now. So you want to pay attention to the inventory levels that you're building. That all happens here in branded production. Next, facilities themselves. They updated the program in 2019 to include equipment that will expire, that the equipment's longevity is done, its useful life is over. And when that happens, you can no longer use that equipment. You need to pay attention to that. You have to make upgrades to your equipment. You may have to replace old, out-of-date equipment as you go. So the facilities themselves, you may need to purchase new equipment. You might buy refurbished equipment, which won't last quite as long. Its depreciation time will be longer. You may just simply upgrade, try to make your plant a little bit more efficient. And there's cost savings when you do all of these things. And it'll outline. So you gotta pay attention to the life of your equipment. Maybe you notice that your company needs more space. My gosh, we need to, expand. We need another production line. We don't have enough space, and you can build additional space as well. So we can do all of these things in the facilities themselves. So in production facilities, that's not the same as the order of our shoes. This is the actual physical space. How do we have it So we know how our plant is equipped. We have decided how many shoes we're going to make, what the styling are, how many models there's going to be, and now we need to ship it. So we need to send it to our warehouse facilities, and so we call that branded distribution. And this is our shipments from plants to regional warehouses. That North American plant, how many of the shoes are going to North America? Makes sense that that's where probably most of its shoes would go. How many of its shoes are going to Latin America? Do we need to take any of the shoes from North America and send them to Asia? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. That's what is happening in this screen. You don't get to leave any inventory at the plant. So if you make 1,000 shoes, 1,000 shoes have to be shipped somewhere. They don't get to sit in the plant. So you have to have exact, right out of the plant, right to the warehouse.
We have warehouses in all 4 places, right?
You have warehouses everywhere. Yes.
Can you have more than one warehouse?
No, you only
One
need one.
location?
Yeah. So just assume that if it's North America, that you have warehouses placed all through North America.
Yeah.
Not necessarily one
That was-
building.
yeah.
Yeah. They don't really distinguish, but just assume that. Your internet marketing. So when you're marketing directly to the consumer with your retail price, this is direct to consumer, is not the wholesale price, so this would be your most expensive shoe. I take it back. This would be the most expensive price you charge for your shoe, would be through the internet price. Considerations that you make are pretty simple. How many of your models are you actually offering online? Probably not the full array that you would find if you went to the store. Are you going to provide free shipping or not? Remember, you're paying for the shipping for all of your other shoes. So the shoes you're sending to your warehouses and to your retailers, you're paying for all that shipping. So now the question is are you willing to pay for the shipping direct to your consumer? It'll probably be a little bit more expensive because it won't be in bulk, but what's going to attract the most customers? And you have the cost benefit as well. Maybe you have a region of the world you don't want to send via internet because the shipping costs are just too expensive. You can turn off a region. You can say, this region, not selling to the internet. These other 3 regions, I am selling on the internet. All of that's flexible. The marketing of our brand. Remember, this is Dixon Athletic Footwear brand. Things that you're considering, I've talked about most of these. I don't think I've talked about all of them. Your service quality. How good are you at responding to your retailers? What level of quality are you providing them? If they have questions. And also your consumers. If they have problems, what's the service level? And that'll lead to your image as well. Number of models, we talked about that. How well do you advertise? It will tell you, advertising gets the name out there. The more the name is out there, when I walk into a store and there's 8 models of shoes sitting on the 8 competitor shoes sitting on the shelf, I want to go with the one I'm probably most familiar with. Therefore, advertising might be very important to you in that case. The retailer support. How much are you willing to train your retailers? Whether it's point of purchase displays that they have, or just simply training and teaching them about your footwear so that they're knowledgeable when a customer asks a question. But if you have 3,000 retailers, how much do you spend for each retailer? That can become pretty costly pretty quick. So you have to balance that to make sure that your retailers are really knowledgeable. And what's your promise? If a retailer, they don't have a lot of space. If you ever worked in retail, or even ever gone to a shoe store, what do they always tell you if you go to a shoe store? Hey, you got that size? What's their common response?
Let's check
Let me
online.
check back.
Okay, check online. Is there any back to check? No, if it's not out, we don't have it.
Right.
That's what they say. So that delivery time is very important to them because they want to keep their shelves full, but they have no place to go store everything. So they need to be able to predict. So they're going to have that economic order quantity, and they're going to say, all right, well, it takes 3 weeks to have these shoes delivered from the company. So when do I need to make my order to make sure that my shelf stays full? And then they're going to predict their sales compared to that and make sure that they have shoes on the shelf. So if I walk into a store on that day and I notice there's only 6 companies with shoes, what am I going to do? Am I going to come back the next week? No, I'm just going to pick from the 6 instead of picking from 8. And if you're one of those 2 that didn't have your shoes on the shelf, you're not selling them. And your competitor just sold business from you as a result. So this is actually a really hard one to do, the delivery time. Seems like it should be simple, but it's actually a very difficult one because there's a lot of timing involved. You gotta get from your production facility to the warehouse to the retailer in the right amount of time so that when that customer walks in the door, your shoe is there.
In the size that they want.
In the size they want, right? We don't have to worry about that too much. We just assume that all of our sizes are going out equally and they're always there. Making for Dixon Athletic Footwear. Now we're talking about the Walmart brand. I just use that because it's easy to remember. It's not specified in the simulation. Now we're talking about private label. You are bidding on this business. You don't have to do this. You can say, I don't want nothing to do with this bidding process. I'm going to keep out of it. Some students or some companies find this a very profitable place to do business. And very lucrative for them, so they really try to corner this as well. I don't know where your strategy is going to be. It's up to you. What will happen is that you will get specifications that you have to meet. What will happen is Walmart will say, we need this level of service quality. Basically, our shoe needs to match this quality. So they'll have like this is the lowest quality we'll accept. So let's say that's 4 stars. We need a 4-star quality. That's the lowest we'll accept. You give us a 3-star quality, reject it. Then they're going to say we have a maximum price at which we will pay. And the maximum price here, you go above that price, automatically reject it. So you have to fall within that price and this quality. If you fall within that range, you get part of the bid. Bids are awarded based on your normal market share. So if multiple companies win a bid for Walmart, well, they don't care who makes them as long as you're hitting this service quality at this price. And they'll divide up their bid based on your market share, assuming you won their bid. So it's possible you get some, possible you get all, depending on where you fall. You only send it to the warehouse, so the only shipping cost you have is to get it to the warehouse. You do have to ship it out of your plant. That's the last cost you have. You have to make the shoe, and you have to ship it to the warehouse. After that, you don't have to worry about any marketing. That's why you can come in at the lowest price. So if I'm looking at my three prices, internet is gonna be my highest price because it's retail. My wholesale price will be somewhere in the middle, and this price will probably be my lowest of my three prices that I charge because I don't have all those extra expenses to worry about. So there's no retail marketing, no support to retailers, they take care of all of it. And I do say what the bids need to make, that minimum service quality rating and maximum price. And they put their name on it, no one ever knows it's yours. Shoes, especially athletic shoes. And so the celebrity endorsements are very helpful to a business. You see direct relation from a celebrity that you have to the sales of your shoes. The issue here is that different celebrities have different appeal in different marketplaces. You might find that Oprah has great appeal in North America and nobody knows who she is in Asia. And that can be positive and a negative. So you want to try to predict which celebrities would help you best in the marketplaces you want them to help, but then it's a competitive bid amongst the other companies. The celebrity is going to go to the highest offer. They don't really care about the shoe. You could win many celebrities. You might win no celebrities. Not everyone will win a celebrity, at least initially, because there will only be a few up for bid that will take your endorsement. Here's some other problems. You might come in and say, oh, you know what, I really want Oprah. I'm going to bid $6 million for Oprah. Come to find out the second highest bid was $1 million. You think, oh, I could have won her for 1.5. Or vice versa. You came in at $1 million and found out that the winning bid was 1.2 million. Like, oh, I just needed a little bit more and I could have won her. So the celebrity bids is definitely a fun component of this, but it really makes an impact. They will give you a rating on each celebrity. It'll say this celebrity is rated here in this market, and it will definitely make a difference to that level. Like if it's 100%, you know you're going to increase your sales dramatically. If it's 50%, you'll see a little bit of an uptick. There's competitive bidding, the celebrity endorsements page.
So those are given to us, we don't get to pick our own celebrities?
The celebrities are built in,
Pre-select.
built in, the ones that come up for bid, but you get to choose if you want to bid on them.
Okay.
So you say, oh yeah, I want Peyton Manning. They don't actually come up with the real names, they fake the names so you know who they are. Jose Montana, right? Or Judy Judge, I think is one of them. Yeah, there's different ones.
Kimmy Jimmel.
Okay, Kimmy Jimmel. Yeah, they just recently changed a lot of the names. But anyway, you get Jimmy Kimmel. You see that he's up for bid, and he has a 100% score in North America, an 80% score in Europe, a 50 and a 20%. And you're like, well, that's good for North America, but I kind of want somebody that's kind of universal, so I'm going to pay them once. So maybe skip his bid. You can, when we get into the bid screen, I'll show you how all the bids work. But know that you can bid on celebrities. And you may want to. What's that?
So that explains a lot.
On the celebrities?
No, because when I was looking on that line, I was, like you said, I got so focused on the numbers when I was going through everything that I was, I just got lost in it.
This happens. What happens in this a lot is the first week or two is incredibly overwhelming because it is so much information to try to absorb. And then if you do get stuck in the numbers, which is quite a common thing for students, that makes it even worse. And then once you're behind, it's hard to get caught up. The next piece corporate citizenship. We want to be a good corporate citizen. This will be one of the factors in our overall image as a business. There's many factors in our image as a business. I'll discuss those a little bit later when we get into reports. But corporate citizenship, what type of green materials are you using? What type of ethics training do you provide? Do you require your suppliers to have a certain code that they also follow? Because you don't want to find out that the company making the rubber for your shoes uses child labor, right? So you want to, even though you don't use child labor, maybe they do. So those are issues that you need to, maybe you set a certain standard for what you're going to do. How energy efficient you are. The working conditions you provide to your employees. There's a pitfall to this. It affects the bottom line in multiple ways. It affects the bottom line in a positive way when your image rating goes up and you have more customers, or customers have a better feeling about your business, or worse, if you have something negative happen and your customers have a negative feeling about you. That could be really troublesome. But there's a financial cost to all of this. If all of a sudden you have tons of charitable giving and you have everything is the highest green materials and you're the most energy efficient and you're doing all those things, there's a significant cost to the bottom line. And when it comes to the end of the day, you're trying to make your investors happy. So that becomes, this is a balancing act of one you really will question what you want to do. Let's see. So the finance and cash flow piece. You'll get your typical reports, but there are three major financial pieces that you'll be paying attention to. Bank loans. You will take out short and long-term loans. There'll be different interest rates based on your credit rating. That credit rating will lead to, of course, more expense or not, especially on your shorter term bank loans. You can pay off bank debt too. I will go over with you misconceptions that individuals often have regarding the use of debt when it relates to a business. Stock issue. Do we want to go and get more equity capital? Are we trying to draw that in as well? And are we paying our investors dividends? After all, part of the reason for them investing in us is that they might have some earnings coming from our company. So we want to pay attention to that. Other things that we consider in the finance and cash flow of our business is the exchange rates. I mentioned that already. Interest rates, all of that. When we get into the decision screens on this, I'll explain it a little bit more. And we will focus on the financial piece probably week 3, maybe week 2. I can't remember which one we focus on. We started with decision schedule. I'll get through the next piece. So when we're making decisions, we make each year we have a deadline. So this is like a timeline of what's happening. So we have a deadline. So at year 11, what will happen is at that point, anything you have saved in the simulation is used as your decisions. And you can make as many changes as you want, as often as you want, without consequence until that deadline. It might give you feedback, say, oh, your earnings per share are going down when you make that decision. You say, oh crap, I gotta go change that, I'll fix it to something else. You can do that. It is not live in that manner. So it's not something where we are all interacting online and it's automatically, instantly responding. It's not. It is only responding on those deadlines. That's when it takes all the numbers and crunches them. In between, anything you want, but once that deadline hits, whatever's saved is what is used. We go up through year 20. There will be 2 occasions, though, where we're going to do a 3-year plan. What a 3-year plan is I want you to think you have investors. Your investors like predictability. They don't like surprises. So if they're going to invest in your company, they want to see, what's the company's forecast? What do you think is going to happen over the course of the next 3 years? And that will help us make a determination if we want to invest in you or not. That also takes you from worrying about short-term results and starting to think strategically. We won't start to do that until we get to year 14. I know I marked it here as year 16, but we won't do that until we get up to here. So you have a couple of individual years under your belt, kind of get acclimated to the program, but then you still make the individual year decisions. You're still making the decision for that year to make sure you stay competitive. The 3-year plan is you're predicting what will happen over the next 3 years and kind of coming up with an overall strategy to get there. You'll do that twice. So, and I think they're graded independently, I'm almost certain. So I think it's 13, 14, 15, and, or maybe it's 14, 15, 16, and then we do 18, 19, 20 are the years. So what's up here does not reflect what I scheduled for you. But it is in the schedule when they're due. The thing is once that hits, you can't change your plan. So if it's 4 years, in this case 16, 17, 18, you're locked in at year 16. Because you can't, you know, if you're making your plan here, it's like, say, okay, I'll make my New Year's resolution, and then, oh, in the middle of the year, I'll change my New Year's resolution. Well, no, your New Year's resolution you made back on January 1st. So that's the same philosophy here. You made your plan here in year 16, so it's now locked in, year 16, 17, 18, and we compare what actually happens to what you predicted would happen. And that's how the 3-year plan works. I will review that 3-year plan in great detail when the time comes. As far as, here's the things you need to consider, here's where the inputs go, and things like that. How are we graded? How are we scored in this piece? You're scored like an investor cares. So the investor cares about 5 major items. And we're going to look at these from 2 points of view. Let me go over the metric that you're scored on, and then I'll talk about the points of view. First one is your earnings per share. How profitable is your business? That's earnings per share. Are you profitable or not? An investor cares about this. Next is your return on equity. So for every dollar I invest in your business, what type of return am I going to expect? So how much is the company growing? And if I pitch in $1, what percentage of that am I getting back for every dollar I pitch in? So that's my return on equity. Stock price. Maybe I'm in it. Maybe I'm invested in your business not for that return, but I want to see my stock appreciate. So I want to buy it low and be able to sell it high so your company continually grows. That might be my investment incentive. So we're going to take a look at how well your stock grows. Your credit rating, how well you're handling your debts. I want to see that. And your credit rating is going to matter because that leads to all sorts of issues with your expenses if you are have to carry on heavy debt burden. So I want to pay attention to that as an investor. So you're scored on that. The last is Do I actually like doing business with you? How are you as a company? Do people like you? Is this a company that people want to be associated with? And so your image rating also affects your score. So these are the 5 scoring criteria for the game. But we look at it from 2 points of view. The first point of view is I'm going to go with the investor's expectations. Personally, when I grade, and actually I grade weighted based on this, I look at this more. I'm more interested in your investors' expectations. You could be a great company for an investor, but not necessarily be the best of all companies. You might have a great earnings per share, great return on equity, stock price, credit rating, image rating that I want as an investor. And if that's the case, and you're meeting the expectations of your investors, you're doing a good job. That is a absolute score. Means that every single one of you can satisfy your investors. Your investors are going to say, here's what we expect you to do as far as your stock price. Here's what we expect you to do as far as your earnings per share. We want you to hit this threshold. You hit that threshold, you get 20 points. You exceed that threshold, you can go beyond 20 points, up to 22. So I can go beyond that a little bit. When I add all these up together, it comes up to 100 points. For investors' expectations, I could actually get 110 points if I were able to exceed expectations on every single of these metrics. Can I do that? Sure. To get to 110, really, really hard. You have to exceed investors' expectations across the board, but definitely doable. That everyone can accomplish. But we also compare to each other. So this is compared to a threshold an investor sets. This is compared to each other. This is best in industry. So this is a relative score. How are you doing relative to everybody else? In this case, there can only be one person that gets the 20 points. One company in each of these items. So only one company is going to have the best earnings per share. I guess technically there could be a tie, but they will go to 3 or 4 or 5 decimal places to figure out who actually gets 20 points and who might get 19 points in that case. So one best for earnings per share, one best for return on equity and across the board. Now we can have many best on credit rating because you could all score the same credit rating, like I'll get an A+, and then you all would hit that. Image rating, you might get the same number of stars. But these other ones, the stock price, return on equity, and earnings per share, it's unlikely you're going to actually tie on those. So here, this 100 points, you're fighting for between each other. And then what we do is the grade in the simulation, or your overall score that you're probably going to be interested in at the end of each week, is a combination of these two scores. We take them 50-50, put them together, and that becomes your grade in the simulation. I don't use that overall score as anything grading-wise in this class. I look at these independently. I look at best in industry, and I look at investor expectations, and I grade them based off of that. Yes?
So let's say we not on purpose, but drive these companies into the ground.
Okay.
Will we, like, is that a failing grade or?
Bankruptcy is possible. Not typical. I've seen companies crash and burn in the worst possible manners you can expect, and they don't quite go bankrupt. It is possible. It's happened once or twice in my time that I've been teaching this class that a company's gone bankrupt. Will it affect your grade in this class? Yeah, absolutely affect your grade in this class to do that. Is it the only thing that affects your grade in this class? No. Right, so the simulation is a piece of your grading. It's part of the syllabus, is how I grade you based on how you do in the simulation. But so is your reflection paper, so are the tests, so are the discussions, so are the journals. So all of those other pieces also factor into the grade. But this definitely falls in there.
I I think
You do not have to be the number one company. You could be the number 2, 3, 4, 5. You could be, all of you are possible to get great scores and grades here. And like I said, I care mostly about this, but I don't ignore best in industry. That's still a piece of it, but my emphasis is gonna be here. If you're scoring high marks all over here, you're scoring high marks in the class. Over there, mostly for bragging rights, but it still affects your grade in there. It just doesn't have the same significance from an instructional point of view. Oh, that is not. So how do we make our decisions? So there's a recommended decision-making process. We'll probably get more into this next week, but we look at some reports first. So what we do is we look at what's happening, so we take a look at all the reporting documentation that we have, and we use that information to help us make decisions going forward. Sometimes we're proactive, sometimes we have to be reactive. That's what the reports help us to see. So we look at footwear industry report, go to our company operating reports, begin making decisions, and then we get to our saving. I'll come back with this next week, because we will not talk about reports this week, we'll talk about reports next week. We're only talking about entry this week, not outcome, or not output. All right, why don't you open up, well,